project, I have chosen to interview Michelle Earl on the topic of teen pregnancy in the 70s. So Michelle, can you tell me about how old you were when you first got pregnant?
I was 16 years old, and I was in my junior year of high school. I was in a relationship for about 3 months, and I got pregnant. It was a very difficult time because I was kind of young and immature, but
what was it like in the 70s getting pregnant as a teen?
Well, I grew up in a very religious household, so it was difficult because my parents had a very difficult time dealing with and accepting the fact that I got pregnant at 16.
How exactly did your parents react to that?
Oh, it was very strange because my father called the priest to speak with me. I guess he figured that would give me some guidance and counseling. But it was a time when, the 60s and 70s, there was a lot of freedom and liberalism. So it kind of created a situation where it was beginning to become acceptable.
What was your initial reaction when you found out that you were pregnant?
Well, I had been actively having sex, so I really wasn't surprised, but I didn't think, because of my naivety, that I would get pregnant. A girlfriend of mine took me to family planning. I took the pregnancy test, and we were both kind of really shocked when we found out because I didn't really believe that I could get pregnant. So, it was kind of a shock to us that, I was 16 years old and I did get pregnant. Otherwise, I kind of dealt with it on a daily basis.
And how did you deal with it in a social aspect?
Well, because of the situation that I was in, it wasn't really acceptable and there weren't too many, or I don't think there were any girls that went to school pregnant back then, which I think has changed now. It's more acceptable where they kind of accommodate pregnant mothers in the school system. So when I initially found out that I was pregnant, I was kind of resistant, didn't want to go back to school, and my parents didn't force me. So I quit school in my, I think it was my March of my junior year of high school. There was, unfortunately, I lost my education because I decided that I didn't want to go back to school. I was offered homeschooling, but I think there was some embarrassment, so I didn't accept that.
What kind of support did you get being pregnant at such a young age?
Well, I would say that various people in my life, such as my boyfriend's mother, was supportive of me. My mother was kind of in a shock period where she didn't know how to deal with the situation. I think she was somewhat in denial. So my parents took the initiative to prevent me from being in any social situations. Basically, I was told that I was grounded until the point where I turned 18. So I was at home. I did have the baby about a week before I turned 17, and I raised my child alone with my parents. My mother was extremely supportive once I did have the baby, but again, I think they didn't know how to handle the situation, so they didn't want me to go out and be in social settings because they didn't know how people would react, or they were not sure whether I was going to just go out and be wild, because during that time period there was a lot of drugs and alcohol, and they weren't sure whether or not I would get involved with friends and in social settings and do something that they didn't think would be good for me. So I was at home. I did raise my daughter until I was 18. And when I turned 18, I immediately got back with my boyfriend. He was very supportive throughout the whole process, even though we didn't see each other. Once I turned 18, we began to prepare for us to get married, and 6 months later we did.
Okay, That's a very good story. How would you say that from the 70s to now, times have changed and how now it's looked upon?
Well, I believe that society has accepted the fact that young girls do get pregnant. I think we've created support systems for girls in school and out of school to help them along in dealing with teen pregnancy. I also believe that there's a lot more education out there. Back in the 70s, I don't think there was a whole lot of education, and coming from a background with a religious family, I wasn't really given a whole lot of guidance as a teenager about teen pregnancy and maybe preventing teen pregnancy through birth control. So I think nowadays there's a lot more support and education for girls so that at least they have the ability to make some choices, where back then I did not.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for your time, and that concludes our interview. Thank you.
Thank you.